Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thank you for joining me today. This video, I'm going to be showing you how to do some foliage. We're going to be doing some simple trees and shrubbery and some grasses using some of our Princeton brushes. I've got a blender, 3/8 inch, a short Aspen script liner number 4, the 3/8 inch Deerfoot Stippler, a flat number 6, a short fan number 2 in the Aspen, both in the Aspen, and then the Velvetouch angle shader 3/8 inch. With these brushes, we can do just about any kind of foliage that we come across. The script liner number 4 Aspen. Get some water on it, and we'll just do a simple tree trunk. I'm using my Polycolor Maimeri paints today. You can see them kind of lined up here. I've got a variety of color, so I'm going to grab some burnt umber. Whenever you're using a liner brush, you want to add extra water to your paints to make them more fluid, more like ink or milky consistency. I'm going to just start it down here and maybe make a little base for it. A little triangle there. You can bring down a root, bring it up, and maybe kind of zigzag it a little bit, walk it up. And then you always want to make sure that your tree trunk gets wider as it goes down. You don't want it to get narrow and then thick again and then narrow and thick again. You want your tree trunks to get narrower as they go out. Those branches should always taper out. You can see here where I've got like a narrow spot, so I want to thicken that up and bring it back into the branch. Kind of keep in mind the shape that you want to do your tree, and make sure your branches kind of end just before the edge. So kind of leave about half an inch to an inch around the outside of my tree for my foliage to go. I've just got this a few shades lighter than my background tree. It's a little bit wet still, so it's kind of blending with it, which is fine. Set that aside. Now let's grab this Deerfoot Stippler. It does a great job of creating foliage, clouds, all kinds of things. So I'm going to get a little bit of black. Maybe that might have been a little too much. Get black and get some of the phthalo green. So I'm going to kind of figure out where I want my darkest part of my tree. Sort of tap in some shadows. Sort of around the middle here. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge because that's where my lightest part of my tree is going to be. So that's good enough for now, I think. Might do a little bit more solid area. Right, so I'm grabbing that chrome green on top. Remember, our light's coming from this side, so I'm going to use this and tap. That's all I'm doing. This brush does all the work for me. Just tap a tap. And then maybe on the top of the tree, there's some really light area. So let's get some yellow, maybe a little bit of both of those yellows. And we can add a little bit of white to it if we need it brighter, but we want like 3 different colors, 3 different values. And then we'll just tap in, think about where the light's hitting that tree, and tap in above that green color that we just did, and add our highlights to our tree. This is as simple as it gets. But there we go, super easy tree. So I'm going to get a little bit more of that phthalo green in a middle shade, and maybe we've got a plant over here. I can add burnt umber to it to darken it up instead of the black. That'll give us a different kind of tone, maybe a little bit more of a bluish tone. Let's use some of that turquoise and do a little bit of that in our brush. And you can see I'm like working back into the colors that I've already done so that they all kind of mesh together. Let's do a shrubbery, and I'm going to use the corner of my brush. This is a 6 flat, But you can see that just by dabbing that brush down on its corner, I'm going to get leafy shapes. We add white. We can add yellow if we want it to look like maybe it's a little bit more sunshiny. And then figure out where your light's coming from. Put your light leaves facing that direction. And you can see I'm kind of turning it so that the leaves that are going off this way are sort of turned in that direction, and the ones that are going over here are turned in that direction. And I like to add yellow whenever I add white to a plant, unless I'm wanting it to be really smoky, gray, sage colored. I tend to add a little bit of yellow every time I add white. That keeps that green vibrant. And then add just a few. Now you don't have to do as many of the really lightest color. The angle brush does the same. It's very similar, creates very similar type of brush strokes. Let me just do a few leaves with it. The one thing that it can also do is grass. So I can do little grasses just by using that bladed edge of the brush. And then we can also do grasses with our script liner as well. We did those fine lines there. You can see how we did that before. I'll do a few lines with this brush next to the angle so you can see the difference. And then the fan brush is a favorite for all kinds of trees. It does a wonderful job of painting pine trees especially. So I'm going to kind of just do a straight line down, and then at the very top I'm going to load up some black and some phthalo green here. So I want to add a little bit of water just so that that paint just comes off of this brush really easily. And I'm going to dab in some initial bristles right at the top. Pine tree grows up at the top, and then as it comes down, the needles sort of weigh down the branches. And then by the time you're at the bottom of the tree, those branches are all kind of coming downward. You can come back in, maybe with some of this lighter green, chromium green, add some highlights toward the top and middle. Got a nice pine tree just like that. This brush is also great for grasses, so I'm going to get some of that green that I was just using, and maybe over here where I've got some room, I'm going to just dab it on. It's going to do some really nice fine wispy grasses. I've used this brush for like sand dunes with that kind of grass that grows really fine and wispy in the sand. Does a wonderful job, super easy to use. And then you could come back in with your angle brush or a liner brush, or get maybe a script liner and do some longer bladed grasses if you want. There you have our foliage. All right, thanks for watching.